Depressing, tragic and very frustrating. Those are just some of the words being used to describe the state of the country's wool industry. While crossbred wool prices have been struggling for years, COVID-19 has seen returns stoop to new record low levels, with some farmers receiving less than $1 a kilogram for their wool. Those involved in the industry say big changes are needed in order for the sector to survive. Our cameraman Nate McKinnon and rural reporter Maya Burry have the story.
Behind the door of Miles Anderson's wool shed, some recently shorn crossbred wool is piled up in packs. But Mr Anderson, a fourth-generation farmer in South Canterbury, is in no big rush to get the wool out the door. He says when prices are this bad, why would you bother?
My ewes were all bellied a couple of weeks ago. This wool is, at the moment, sitting here because it's not worth selling. On one of my paddocks I've got a bit of a dump of wool that it's cheaper to dump it over the bank than to put it in a pack and send it to town.
Crossbred wool, used mostly in carpets, makes up about 85% of New Zealand's total wool clip, but at the moment returns are at the lowest levels ever seen. Miles Anderson says when he first got into farming, wool and meat made up a roughly equal share of the farm's income. But he says prices these days, especially post-COVID-19, don't even cover the costs of shearing.
Prior to the lockdown and so on, I'd say we would have been averaging around the $2.50 mark for a kilo of fleece wool. Since the lockdown, we've been lucky to get $1 for a kilo of fleece wool, which is well below the what it costs to get the wool off the animal.
PGG Wrightson's South Island wool manager Dave Burridge has been involved in the industry for nearly 40 years, and in that time he's watched countless bales of wool go under the hammer at auction.
135 with our measure. Over the page we go.
Mr Burridge says with little demand from mills in key overseas markets such as China, even fine wools like merino, which attract a premium, are struggling in the post-COVID world. But he says coarse wool is the big worry.
We've certainly seen some serious headwinds in our industry, and it's to put it bluntly, it's quite depressing. Very in fact.
Dave Burridge says for the last 20 years there's been no governing body representing New Zealand's 11,000 wool growers. He says the industry is fragmented, with no strength in numbers and funding available to promote wool.
And it's been 20 years now since the demise of the New Zealand Wool Board, and I think it would be fair to say the track record would indicate that there's probably grounds for another conversation to be had for growers to regroup for their business, because at the end of the day they own their own wool.
A sheep and beef farmer near Fairlie, Greg Anderson, is one of many farmers frustrated by wool prices, and he agrees marketing will play a key part in improving returns. Mr Anderson says New Zealand's crossbred wool is some of the best in the world and should be promoted as a sustainable, natural product compared to synthetic fibres. He says if things don't change, the industry could disintegrate, with some farmers already opting to convert to sheep breeds that grow very little or no wool.
Well, as I said, a lot of farmers will find ways to get away from producing sheep that produce wool, because farmers are very quick adapters. You know, the Wiltshire breed, I know they're selling very well up in the North Island at the moment. People start looking at ways to have sheep, and then you lose a whole industry.
A government and industry-led wool working group was set up in July last year to try and find a way to revive the struggling sector. As part of this, a report outlining an action plan for the industry was expected to be released by the Agriculture Minister months ago. Damien O'Connor says there have been delays due to COVID-19, but he hopes to release the report in the next 10 days. For Checkpoint, Maya Burry.